This presentation is just a snapshot of the life and times of Elizabeth Beatrice Slayton Boone. I'm the second oldest of four very blessed individuals that had and lived the privilege of calling her Mama. What a wonderful childhood we had. I mean, no one was loved more than us. No one had more love of life instilled within them as we did, as she raised us, played with us, taught us, shaped us, and cared for us through the years. Our family was large, as we had 3 uncles and 1 aunt, 4 families of cousins, aunts and uncles. So there were our aunts and uncles, 19 of our cousins, the 4 of us, Mama and Daddy, and also our grandparents. Oh, and I failed to include our great aunts and great uncles and all their kids and grandchildren. And with all these people, our mother, Mama, or B, or Aunt B, or Beatrice, was everyone's favorite aunt, cousin, daughter, niece, in-law, and mother. All of them loved to see her coming and hated to see her go. She touched so many, and her energy and love of life was contagious. Just a quick interjection here, she loved her Lord Jesus Christ, and it showed in her life. Something else everyone loved was her stories. She frequently was asked to tell the stories of when she was a little girl, playing with her brother James and cousin Howard, not just by us 4 kids, but by all the rest of them also. We got more than anyone else, of course, for being with her at home so much. We would just sit spellbound as she brought her past to life. The way she described it, you could just picture the events as her stories unfolded. When she got much older, in her late 80s, Mama broke her hip and was temporarily admitted to a facility for therapy and recovery. While there, I went to see her frequently, as all of us kids did. During this time, I got her to tell some of her stories while I recorded them. I'm not sure of how many I have, but I know I don't have more than 1/3 of all the stories she told us. But still, I have quite a few, and I want to let her share them with you now. That's us here, Mom and Daddy, and the 4 of us kids. The tall, slender girl in the back is my older sister, Beth. The boy on the left with my daddy is my younger brother, Keith. The pretty little girl sitting in Mama's lap is my little sister, Kathy. And I'm the boy on the right, leaning in by Mama to get in the picture. Now, this is the way I remember Mama looking in my childhood. Always thought she was so pretty. We all did. What a life we had. God bless mothers.
Okay, every morning I was raised in this big old 3-room house. They built that house new when we come to Stonewall. They come around the open. They left the main floor. And it was 2 big old rooms and a kitchen. And then my daddy built a screened-in back porch onto it. And it had a big old front porch that went all the way across. It had a fireplace in the one front room. It had a wood stove in the kitchen. That was our heat. We had stove wood and that old firewood, and it started to fire was pine splinters. And every morning, Mama got up, and I don't know if I want to hear this, but my daddy called Mama Miss Roxy, and my mama called Daddy Mr. Slayton. His name was James Daniel, and everybody called him Jim, but it was Miss Slayton and Miss Roxy. It was in the good old days. We had a tin-top house. See, when Mom and Daddy moved from Campbell County to Stonewall, there was an old house there, and they was gonna rent it. Well, Miss Janie Avermead, she decided she was gonna build a new house there. And so they built a little at the time on it. And they built it new, but they left in it just had 3 big rooms, 2 big rooms and a kitchen. And Daddy made a screened-in back porch for it. it had a big front porch. And boy, you could hear that rain coming down. The fireplace had a chimney light, went down to the ground on that same side of it, the fireplace. So we had stove wood and firewood, splinters, probably about a few pine knots, and chop off some splinters to start the forge with. The porch was high up off like it went in our steps was in the front of the house, but Daddy built some on one end of it, and it had banisters on it. It was a long porch. And up on the end that was high, I had a playhouse under there. And I made mud pies and play cooking, you know, thing. And I walk around holding on with my hand and singing. And one of the songs I used to sing was in the Sweet By and By. And I'd sing this. And when the roll is called up yonder, what is that little song? I can't think of it. But my daddy, when I was little, he taught me the 23rd Psalm, so I know it. A lot of times I think now, well, I wonder if my dad was really saved, but then I know he read some of his Bible, and I still got his little Bible. And anyway, so I know he was from. There was no dog, it was Pete Irby's dog, it was a bulldog, he went mad. He come up to the house, and my grandmother lived, we called her Maggie, she had a little white dog named Bounce. We had a dog named Champ. And anyway, that dog had a fight with both of them. And anyway, they said it was mad. Somebody come up and killed him. Well, Bounce went mad, Mammy's dog. So Daddy killed him, and so Mama was afraid Champ would go mad. So I remember that she took him up there and tied him up in the pine thicket. Daddy went up there and shot him because he wasn't mad, but she was afraid. Because one of our cats wasn't mad too. He was chasing me, and I didn't know he was mad. And anyway, he was slobbering and everything. His name was Topsy. Yeah, we had a cat named Topsy. But we had that one named Topsy. When Daddy was living, he had this old cat, I remember, and he was gray and white, and we called him Tom. And of course, back then you didn't buy cat food and stuff like that. No, there wasn't none, I don't reckon. And every morning that old cat would sit down by Daddy at the end of the table, and Daddy would give him a piece of beef. Whenever that Mad Dog come through that time, our house was kind of high off the ground. And Myrtle Lewis had come through there. And she was playing like she was grabbing mine and James's feet. And she looked there and she said, "There's that dog." That was that good hunting. That's the one I was telling you about, Marco. And anyway, Daddy run got his gun, a rifle. And he thought he shot the dog, but he didn't, but he shot the cat instead. Anyway, the Tom went off and we couldn't find him. He stayed gone about 3 weeks. And he come up and his old leg was about to rot off. Of course, we didn't have vets and things then on it. And I remember that Simon side, Raleigh Simon side, Mama swore by that stuff from that day on. She just wrapped that cat's leg up put old pieces of sheet on it for Simon's eye, and he got well on it a long time after that. So we always kept Simon's eye. But we lived there till when Daddy died. Daddy would get up every morning, build a fire in the stove. We had a wood stove. I had a wood stove in the fireplace. And then Mama, and he'd put the coffee on. And Mama would get up and make biscuits. She made biscuits every morning. We had biscuits and syrup or biscuit and some kind of canned preserves. Homemade preserves, you know. We had chickens, but we didn't eat eggs for breakfast. I guess we didn't know to. Because the egg I ever eat at breakfast, I got wrong. We had chickens and we got eggs every day, but we didn't eat them for breakfast. Well, I don't know. And my grandma come live with us a while. She was living with us when Daddy died. In fact, she had made him some shirts. She was working in buttonholes and Daddy, he'd get up that morning, he'd work out in the garden. And anyway, he'd come in and lay down. He always just lay down on the floor and put the chair on his head. And anyway, I went in the kitchen, I was gonna get me a biscuit. And we'd punch up a hole in it with a finger and make us a sort biscuit. And James was up to one side of the house, he was whittling. And I heard him just screaming and crying. And I heard Mammy say, go get somebody to quit. Well, I went running to the door. I thought he had heard himself. And she told me, she said, your daddy's dying. He was laying on the floor, gasping for breath. And she tried to get me to hold his head up while she put the chair under his head, put a pillow under his head. And he always lay with his back up on the chair, but she was just going to put a pillow under his head. And I couldn't do it, so she held it and had me to put it under there. And they sent out to Mama, and they told her that he was real sick. They didn't tell her I can see that in my mind now. She come up them stairs, and she started hollering he was dead. I never get on that. And they didn't take him to the funeral home. They involved the Dutch house. They used to do that, you know. And they buried his whatever they got out down beside the fence down in the back of one of our fields. We had had a garden, had different things in it. And we had a corn patch, and we had a potato patch, and patches, a big patch. And anyway, they just embalmed him and put him, fixed him right. But it didn't look like Dad. And Mama had a picture she had a long time in the bottom of her trunk. But it didn't look like him, so I put it out. What they did, them undertakers shaved his mustache off. I guess they knew, but they should have told him. And if you ever heard anybody speak 3 different languages, she told them undertakers, I don't know what she was saying. I heard words I never heard before. She was shaving his mustache off. Did you ever see a picture of Daddy? And Daddy, he worked in the garden and everything, and he'd different people, greens and stuff like that. You know. At that place, we had a big old plum orchard. We had what we called a little gully, and it was full of plums. And he'd make us get up, go down there and pick them plums up for all the kids up and down the softball, come up there to get them. And at that place, it had a well. It was like just a big old dug well with planks on each side. But the water was shallow in it. In fact, there was 2 rabbits got down in it one time, and Mama got them up with the water bucket. So we towed our water from the spring. And that water was so cold it froze the bucket up when you dipped it up. And we'd go down to the branch then for the spring and wash. You know, rubberboard, Irish piano. And boil them in the wash pot. I said, one time I said, if there was ever anything, if I just could have one utility, it would be water in the house. Just a kid job. We had some barrels we'd catch rainwater, and my mama used to like to wash dishes. She'd heat it up, boil it on the stove, and a kid. We had no coffee mill. And back then, now right now, somebody probably give you big money for that coffee mill. You grind your coffee. She'll take stuff like that and just carry it down to the trash pile, throw it in there. But it used to kick them in the death to get to grind the coffee. Daddy parched it. She'd buy green coffee and he parched it. We'd grind it as we used it. But that was some good coffee. We thought it was. And she always let us have coffee with our biscuits. And every night for supper that I can remember, Daddy died in April, and I was 10 that year. But every night that I can remember, we had cornbread and milk for supper. We had biscuits and molasses for breakfast. And I don't remember about much. We didn't really have nothing. Just eat biscuits or whatever was left over there. We had plenty to eat, but we didn't know what a lot of stuff is that folks had found. We had peanut butter. We had peanut butter and homemade preserves, tea preserves, pear preserves, and blackberry preserves. Oh, that's what's good, homemade blackberry preserves. And every year on my birthday, I didn't know what a birthday cake was, but every year on my birthday, Mama made me a blackberry pie, cobblestone. We had a persimmon tree, and them things is good if you get them ripe. If you get one ain't ripe, you had it. We had eggs, but we just didn't eat eggs for breakfast. Mama cooked with them. Boy, you talking about my grandma. She could make a tea cake that would make a bulldog break his chain. It was in the good old days. Let's see, when I was little, Mama made our step-ins out of flour sacks. You used to get your flour sacks. I mean, I didn't know what store-bought panties was. But anyway, she'd hang them on the back of the chair. Well, I forgot my, and I had on this little dress that was flared tail. And anyway, when I got to nearly back to school, I realized I didn't have them on. We used to have to line up to go in school, you know, what they done. And anyway, I was waiting for them to line up. This old Laverne Hall, when she caught me up and swung me round and around. People in the line, I was fighting. But anyway, when I went home at lunch that day, Mom wasn't working that day. School was just a short ways to the house. And I was going in the house and I saw Mama said, I know what you're doing in there, and I'm putting on your stepping. You went off and left it this morning. And I'll never forget that day while the teacher had me up there reading in front of the class. I kept pulling my dress down. I felt like they were seeing me. Oh, mercy. Okay, when after Aunt Ruth died, Uncle G wanted Mama to come down and live in one of his houses so she could help take care of his kids. Because Huey was just 3 when his mama died. And anyway, he had a big old yard and it had big old fence posts and wooden gates. And then across the road, we lived in that house. But every Saturday night, we'd go over to Uncle G's to listen to the radio. We didn't have no television. And we was going over there, and they had this big old German police dog. It had a fit. It started running around, and Mama said for us to all get up on the fence post. So we all sat up there, and the dog had a fit, and he come lay down the road and wouldn't move. We sat up there for a long time. It wasn't. 3 people could sit on it that were big on it. Must have been a tree. And that's the house that Uncle G made an artesian well. And the water just flowed all the time. And I had a flower garden there. Finally, he moved in the other house, and we moved in that house. And we had cows. You know, we always had cows. And we'd take that lot of fertilizer and put under. That's the best stuff you can put on the flowers and stuff. And I had some zinnias planted in the corner of that yard. And them blooms was nearly big as a plate. They was so big and pretty. And he had no lake. There was no lake down behind the house. And you know them old vines you would swing out across and haul the tars on. And one time me and Doris was swinging on one, we fell off in the water. We talked. That was Uncle G's oldest girl. He had one named Doris, Rosalie, Guy, and Huey. Well, we had a bunch of mad dogs. But the mad dog that went mad in the pasture, and James hid behind a tree and shot at it with a BB gun. We didn't know it was mad. And the people that lived up above us, it belonged to them. And everybody, we lived off the road, and the people that lived up above us would come to our yard going to town or wherever. And the dog belonged to Mr. and Ms. Moore. And Barnell Dillard, he was in my room in school. There was 3 of them Dillard boys. And that dog bit them, but they didn't know he was mad. And he was mad, and he went Bryant's pasture. We all had cattle in the pasture. That's what we had 3. Aunt Alice had a young yearling. He was a pretty thing. That dog chewed him up so bad you could tell what he looked like. He went mad and he bit them cows. So everybody got rid of the cows. I remember when they come up there to take them off, and I cried because they took Dolly off. She was black, white, spotted. And I didn't want them to take Dolly. Well, everybody got rid of the cows. Brian, he had 2 Jersey cows. he wouldn't get rid of his. And anyway, one of them one day come up to the fence, like the pasture run between the front of our house and the back of their house. It was the main road. And that cow come up and she was pawing the ground and blowing. If you never heard of mad cow, so anyway, she was just pawing the ground and butting at trees and running around and slobbering. And so Brian come up there and shot her with his pistol. So then he got rid of the other. That was landed on the pasture. First talking about Miss Gladys and Brian Moffitt, and he was a constable in Stonewall. And Miss Gladys had a store. She just had a small store, but then she built a bigger store later across on those. But for a long time, she just had that one little old store. And she'd want men come down there and watch her store while she had this black lady that come and cooked dinner for her and cleaned her house. And she'd go across the road to eat dinner, and she'd have men come watch the store while she went and ate her dinner. That was my first job I had. I made $3 in a day. We used to work when I went to work in the cotton mill. I thought I was rich. I made 50 cents an hour. And them old pay slips is in my stuff somewhere there, if you ever want to see them. And Mama's too. And Mama, there's some of her old pay envelopes there where she used to just make, I've seen it when it'd be $19, $20-something a week. We had biscuits every morning for breakfast, and we always had milk and butter, but I wouldn't drink. I couldn't stand sweet milk because we didn't have no refrigerator to keep it cold. I like buttermilk. Mama said I always said it tastes like an old cow smelled. And she'd have me to churn, and I'd churn, be reading a book or something, and slosh the milk out, and boy, she'd get all over me. One time we had this old cow named Butsy, and she come running through the yard. We was all standing out in the yard. And she got out of the pasture and she come running through the yard. And she run right between James's legs and picked him up and threw him over her neck. We had this old cow named Flossie, and she'd run you. But anyway, like, sometimes if we needed milk to go in the coffee, Mama would run out there and milk a little milk to go in before she milked her. And sometimes I'd get her to let me do it, you know, but I was scared of that. I was scared of Flossie. But anyway, that old dog that went mad, he got in the pasture and bit all them cows, and James was down in the pasture one day and was shooting at him with a BB gun. Didn't know he was mad. And they had a policy went out to hunt that dog. They come running down the hill to find him, and they found him and they shot him and killed him. That one. Oh, that was back when she was younger. She told us about that. She shot that dog that was so far away. She didn't mean to shoot him, but she was going. She told him, said, "Watch me shoot that dog." And she didn't mean to hit him, but she did and killed him. And I forgot how many feet away, but it was long. You've heard her tell that it was a long way off. And she could shoot a gun now, Mama could. And I remember when me and her were staying by ourselves after James went in service, every night, not one night, but every night, she got that shotgun down and bricked it and laid it down on the floor. And I remember one time when we lived in one house, she thought she heard something, and she made James get out in the yard and shoot the rifle up about 3 times in the air. I really thought that'd scare them all. I was going to tell you about my daddy. He always had a bunch of tools. And I don't know why he didn't have nothing to work on. He had tools, and he sold my cornered stuff. That was kind of like Raleigh stuff, you know, peppers and flavorings and stuff. And he'd tow the stuff off in suitcases and come back. And one day me and James got into his, and got one of his screwdrivers out. And anyway, Daddy was coming back. We were scared to death. We knew we couldn't put it back. We were sitting out in a little old tree, under a tree. And we buried that screwdriver. We screwed it down the ground. As far as I know, it's still there. Oh, and let me tell you this. He sold X-Lax, and X-Lax used to come in a little tin box, and they looked like candy. And then we got in there one day and got a box of X-Lax and ate them. And you can remember to know the results. But anyway, we never did get his stuff no more. And you know, Mama did snuff, Daddy chewed tobacco. And I had a whole box full of little red bloodhounds that was made out of tin that come off his tobacco. I had a powder box full of them. I don't know what went with them. And one day we washed. We towed our water from the spring, but we went down to the fort was at the branch to wash. And Mama sent me into the house to get her stuff box, so I did. And I'd see her pour down that lead and pour it under her tongue. It looked so good. So I decided I'd take me a dip of snuff. So I did. And I was trying to get it out of my mouth before I got back to the spring. And anyway, she looked at me and she said, "You need to be trying," and I swallowed some of it. Boy, it was the sickest I ever been. And she said, "You need to be trying to get that snuff out of your mouth. I see it all over your mouth. I know what you done. You took a dip of snuff." But I never did want no more. We got Daddy's chewing tobacco one time or so get us, and he made us chew a piece of it. And that stuff is terrible. He said one time, he told me some stitches I'd been to my mouth instead of in my foot. Let's see. He had come to the house, and him and Daddy was walking. That's when they lived over that there place where I was raised. So I wasn't that old when we moved from there. I was about 11 when we moved from that house. So I had to be not over 11. We was walking along, and Mama had told me about Uncle G slapping her one time, you know. And so anyway, we was walking along. Oh, I just looked up at Uncle G and I said, "Why'd you slap my mama for?" He said, "Them stitches ought to be in your foot, mouth instead of in your foot. I had cut my foot and had some stitches in it." Oh, let me tell you this. One time, Mama left us after Daddy died before we moved from that old home place. Me and James was supposed to go to the spring and tote water up. Mama was working. Well, anyway, I went in the house and she always told us to shut the back door. I don't know why we lived so long with everybody. I went in the house to shut the back door, and there was a white tablecloth hanging on the back of the door, and I thought it was a ghost, and I run out. We didn't go to the spring, we went over to Uncle G's. That was when they lived in Stonewall before we moved to the railroad. And anyway, we got a good chewing out about that. I run up time behind that door, and James was something behind that door. It looked like a ghost. I tell you this, when I was little, we had coal lamps. And I would not sleep in it. I don't sleep in a dark room now. And I would not sleep in a dark room. Mama had to burn coal oil lamp all night with me when I was little. Because I wouldn't sleep in a dark room. I was always scared of the dark. And some, like when Aunt Ellis used to come see us, she didn't want no light, no nothing on. She wanted black dark. But I don't think I'd ever go to sleep in a dark room. I don't think I could. That was a good cup of coffee. Mama come up to see us. We lived in a house in this Boone. We had this big old room on that. Oh, they had the fine chest in room. We had 2 beds in there. I had my bedroom suit, that alarm bed that I had for so long. Well, when Mama come up, she slept in one of the beds, and me and Chestin slept in the other one night. Mama said, "Beatrice, wake Chestin up. He sounds like a freight train coming through a wilderness." It was really a graveyard. I mean, it really was a long graveyard. See, where we lived, after that, we finally moved over on the main road after Daddy died. And we lived in this house in the graveyard. Can you remember that house? Y'all come there when Mama was living there. That graveyard, the back of it come down. Well, you could look out. You could look out our door and see the back of the graveyard. But anyway, we was living in this house, and we had window shades, but sometimes we didn't pull them all the way down. But that particular morning, Mama went to the kitchen. She had to be at work at 6 o'clock. She got up at 4 o'clock, and she was looking out the window, and she saw some lights come up out of the graveyard. And you could watch them, and they'd go way off out of sight. And anyway, she, one day, there was a fence between our house and that next house. And there was one out there rolling up and down on the ground, up down the fence, a line. And then one morning, she got up and she looked. And we were scared to pass that graveyard at night, because when we'd go to church, we'd run by that graveyard because we were scared when the lights would come up. And Mama said that morning, it looked like that whole graveyard was going to light up, and them lights just come up, just rose up and up in there. I don't know. Yeah, well, we did. Me and Bonnie had went to church. We come back, and there was a light. That was before that, for when it first started. And there was a light, like, they lived on one side of the road, we lived on the other side. And there was a light. And there was a little old bridge going across the ditch to get to our yard. And there was a light playing around right up over there, and we were scared to go home. We were scared to pass them. We went running into her house over on the other side of the road. Miss Willie Mae had to walk across the road with me. I wouldn't go. I was scared of it. But that was really the truth about that graveyard. And I remember, I know one time me and Faye was coming around the road from church instead of cutting through the short way. And to the left and the other was a ditch. Anyway, she seen it, and she said, "B, don't look up." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, just don't look up." And I looked anyway, and there was a light down there playing around on top of them trees. And she said she knew we had to go by that way to get home, or no other way to go to get home, you know. And she just had to pull me. She wasn't scared of it, you know. And Howard used to tell me, He'd say, "B, ain't no need to be scared of them lights." I said, "You know you're scared of them lights. Ain't no need you be scared of them. One could come in here and roll around on the floor if it wanted to, and it had me scared to death." Well, anyway, they thought different things about it. Mama and Mammy, and that they all talked about it, you know. We found out later, though, later in years, we found out that the gases makes lights in graveyard. But I'll tell you now, till you see one, it'll make cold chills go over you. Used to this man come by the house. He wore one of them old aviator caps, I call them, had them old long things hanging down. Well, anyway, Mama and them, they was always scaring us about rawhead and bloody bones. I had my opinion of what bloody bones was like. It was a big old kind of square thing and had blood in the bones, but I didn't know what rawhead was like. One day this man passed by, and I asked my daddy, I said, "Who is that?" He said, "That's rawhead." So then every time I seen a man with a long cap on like that, I was scared to death. I thought it was rawhead. We had this old pig, and anyway, he was a pet pig. I mean, he'd get out of the pen and he would come around with, play with it. And me and James took an old dishpan to him one time, made a wagon on the back of it, and he went running around the house. Oh, I remember it was an old blue dishpan. And I'll tell you how nasty we was. We had this old pet chicken. Her name was Dominator, and she was Pet. And we called her Pet, and we just played with her all the time. And it come a snow one time. And all the other chickens had got up in the chicken house up under the house. And the Pet, Mama went out there and brought Pet in out of the snow. But we'd sit on the front step and eat a biscuit and let her pick the biscuit off our teeth. And you know how they eat chicken stuff. That's how nasty we were. And we had this chicken named Peddler. He was deformed. He walked straight up like them old cartoon chickens, and we named him Peddler. And anyway, back then, if you had chicken or anything, you killed it off the yard. You didn't go to the store and buy chicken. So we begged Daddy not to never kill Peddler, okay? So anyway, one day he killed a chicken. He had chicken cooked them all. He cooked them all. And anyway, I remember that now so good. And he died. I wasn't quite 10 when he died, but I can still remember things back then. Yes, 'cause that chicken was good. Yes, sir. You just ate Peddler. Oh, that made us sick. He killed Peddler and cooked. Uncle G had 3 houses. And when Aunt Ruth died, he wanted Mama to move down there because Huey was just 3 and his kids weren't that old, you know. And so we moved down there across the river. And that Christmas, my grandma was still living. She was living with us. And we put up a Christmas tree. It was a real tree. And anyway, Mammy said you could make snow by big egg whites and put cotton. Take cotton and egg whites. Anyway, we had that tree fixed so that one Sunday we all went walking down the river road and we had a little black hound dog. We lived him in the house so he wouldn't follow us. It was James's little dog. We come back, that dog, I guess, is went to the eggs. It's wonder he hadn't died. He ate all that cotton off that tree. Most of it, he ate it. And just tore our Christmas tree up. When I was in the 8th grade, we moved to the first house then. we ever lived in that had electric lights in it. And so Mama bought us a string of lights and put up the tree. And me and James thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And you won't believe in my stuff that we still got that string of lights, still got that string of lights. I thought it was like they burned. But it was the kind that had the big old bugs stamped. And I think it just had egg on the thing, but we thought we had a pretty Christmas tree. And we used to put a chair out for Santa Claus to put our stuff in. And he always brought me a doll and a ball and a tea set. And one time, me and James found out that, well, anyway, that there wasn't no Santa Claus, you know. And we knew that Mama got our stuff and put it in her big old trunk. Do you remember her big old trunk? You know, Beth got it, but it got burned on that house. And anyway, I had a ball and I got that and bounced it all over the house and put it back. Oh, man, we always got an orange and an apple and some candy in our chair. And we had Roman candles. Me and Margaret come up to Brandon Sea Chesney, and that was before we was married. And anyway, we come on the bus. And used to the bus drivers, they'd say all aboard it. They don't do that no more, I don't think. And so anyway, when we got to Peleachi, he said, all aboard Peleachi. And we got tickled and we laughed all the way to Brandon. We couldn't forget it. Peleachi was the first name I ever heard. And then, when me and your daddy first got married, we lived in a house with Mr. and Mrs. Boone. We had one big old room, and I had my bedroom suit and my bed in it. That old bedroom suit that I had all the years. And so when Mama would come, she'd sleep in one of them beds. Anyway, Chesney, he did snore real bad. She said she'd come by and she had me on her shoulder. She said, Beatrice, wake Chesney up. It sounds like a freight train coming to the wilderness. But he'd snore and he'd whistle.